Rivals 2 has cleared its launch year, with 2024 being jam-packed with betas, early access brackets, and some super cool launch events. And while 2024 was really cool, 2025 is sure to bring even more content to both the game and the competitive landscape. Today, I'll be going over what we do know is coming to the game, as well as looking at some developer replies to community posts, and talking about the general community sentiment, and where I think the game will be going based on that. I'm going to try to keep speculation to a minimum, and I really do want to start with what we do know, and then start thinking on future changes we might see come to the game. First, let's take a peek at the roadmap graphic we got right around the game's launch. We see the 2024 section first, which has all been completed, but if you're really itching for info on the 2024 season, I actually just posted a recap video of everything that happened last year, and you can check it out after we take a peek into 2025. After we move past the 2024 section of the graphic, we're brought over to the 4 new characters section of the graphic, and we actually know Edlis is our first one. He'll be releasing mid-January. I imagine we'll get at least one other returning character, as well as 2 original characters that haven't made their fighting game debut just yet. I'd really like to make a video in the future speculating what kind of characters I'd like to see, maybe even some third-party ones, or some characters from Dungeons of Aether, but I'm not too sure who the characters this year will be. I do know a lot of people are speculating Absa will make an early return, however. Below the character section on the graphic, we have 12 new events. This is talking about the monthly events that we get new skins with and a free battle pass with fun unlocks from. We know January has a primal skin theme, and I imagine February will probably bring the Lovers of Aether skins, since Crag already had a primal skin and Zetter already has his Lover's skin. It just makes sense. I'm personally really hoping to see Lover's Forceburn. I think he looks really stupid, and that kinda rocks. If I had to guess, some future events we might get, I'd imagine April will have some kind of April Fools related trope, and March or May might have a spring theme. June or July will probably be paired with a summer or pool theme, since we see the Pool Claren on the roadmap graphic, and she's not in the game quite yet. If I had to assume, September will probably have a fall theming, since October would probably be another Halloween event. I could also see the devs rerunning the Rivals 3D event as well, to give us more low poly skins, since I know the community rocked with those a lot. Our next spot on the roadmap is Esports Season 1. In the past, Aether Studios has hosted a series of online and in-person events, working as a circuit to build up a massive yearly event, with funds raised by the community through donations, skin purchases, and merch shops. I'd hoped the scopes of the events might be a little bit larger with off-brand games backing them, but I'm not 100% sure. At the end of the day, these circuits have always been super interesting to watch, since they combined ideas fostered in grassroots communities with dev support and community fundraising, getting the best of both worlds. And also, back in Rivals 1, they gave out these cool skins with custom emotes for entering circuit events. I thought they were really fun, and I actually only was able to get one since I was busy during a lot of the other circuits, but I think they're really cool and really fun to collect. Next up, we have the Crew Battle mode, which will be launched in Q4 according to Dan. This mode should allow seamless, online crew battles, which sounds really sick. I ran an online crew back when they were really popular in Smash Ultimate, but the crusty netcode always held the game back. So I'm really excited to build a team and community to compete together with a bit more robust of a Wi-Fi system. If you're looking for a team, you can check out our Discord. I'm definitely going to be looking for people to join. Next to the crew battle system, we have ranked updates, with a cool raster palette that's not in the game quite yet. I assume this palette will be unlockable by reaching the gold rank, since that's where palettes and skins were unlocked in Rivals 1. Dan actually talked about the new ranked mode a bit in Nolt board posts, saying that it'll have a few improvements, like not matching players into the same player they recently fought, and a more fleshed out ranking system. Something that he noted that I personally didn't love was that each character would not have their own ranking, and it would instead be tied to each account. I liked the individual character ranking system in Rivals 1 a lot, since I wasn't punished for learning a new character on ranks. I could fight lower level players who were also learning the game or a new character without losing ranked as my main. I think the obvious solution to this is queuing casual, but casual has a much wider range of an MMR system, meaning I sometimes get queued into someone much better or much worse than me, which makes it a little tricky to learn someone new. Dan did comment that the devs have this in mind though, so I'm curious to see what they come up with to notably improve their current system, since it sounds like it's a pretty sizable rework on top of an already solid system. At the end of the day, I don't know a ton about ranking systems past the games that I've played, so I'm really excited to see what they have in store. Our last three little sections on the roadmap are training updates, lobby improvements, and controller improvements. I imagine the training mode will get options over time, and I imagine we'll be seeing in-game tutorials sometime this year too. I'm really looking forward to those, to be honest, since the game's a bit more challenging than a game like Smash Ultimate to pick up and play. So it's a little hard to convince people to try the game when characters like Fleet or Forest Burn might feel really foreign to someone without a guide. Dan also commented on the Nolt board saying he'd like to add some training-esque mini-games, like break the targets or maybe a dedicated movement practice mode. As far as lobby improvements go, Dan tagged a Nolt board comment saying he's researching opinions, saying that they're looking to upgrade lobbies sometime in Q1 this year. I'm really hoping this will allow people to join after the lobbies are made, similar to a Smash Ultimate Arena, but I'll see what the team has in store. I'm not sure what the team is imagining with the controller improvement section, since everyone I know either plays on Procon, GameCube controller, keyboard, or Xbox controller, and they all work great. If there are controllers that don't play nice with the game though, I'd love to see more support for them. And if there's any stick dead zone issues, maybe some in-game fixes for those as well. I'm not 100% sure if people discuss this online. I've never had an issue with stick dead zones myself, so I'm not sure if it's a real problem or someone jawing on the Everything app of why they went 1-2 if we're in bracket for the 4th time in a row. Before we fully hop off the roadmap and move on to Noltborg topics, I just wanted to address the Beyond section super fast. The devs show off some new stage art, a story mode, buddies, custom color, a console launch, and future workshop support. Out of all these, I'm the most hyped for buddies, since they have a lot of personality and customization to the game, and picking a buddy to cheer on was always a lot of fun for me. As far as stages go, I really rock with the stages we have now, but I remember Dan saying that he might consider rotating the legal stage list every season or so. This might be a fun idea to keep the game fresh. I think the starters are all really solid, but maybe rotating a less popular stage like Hyperborean Harbor or Aramata with a newer stage that compounds or mixes up previous stage design ideas might be a fun way to shake up the competition. As far as custom colors go, I know modders have always been able to change color values, so it's definitely something the team has the ability to do behind the scenes, but from what they've said, it's more of a UI challenge, since every skin would need sliders for the colors, and it'd need to be something simple and understandable to someone who doesn't have a ton of modding capabilities. I think this is something I can wait on for now personally, since I already have a hard time picking what skin I want to rock every time I log on. But I'm really excited to play around and maybe make a piss yellow arcane as soon as I get the chance. Now that we have everything in the roadmap wrapped up, we can go ahead and peek at the Nolt board. I don't have these comments in any particular order, and I obviously won't be doing a full roadmap review like this one every month, but I do plan to make a Nolt board content or dev highlights whenever there's enough information to share in a video summary, like this one. Speaking of future videos, if you're rocking with this one, you might want to go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss one of those. I've got a lot planned. I'm working on a Zetterburn matchup chart right now that should be out in a week or two, as well as a video talking about the art direction of the game, and I have an editless guide planned for as soon as he launches. Back to the Nolt board though, we do see Dan comment on getting a new hire to work on shop skin previews for alternate palettes. I really rock with this idea since sometimes I don't love a default skin, but I really like its alt color scheme. One that stands out a lot to me is Loxnaut's cowl skin, since I think the default feels a little bland, which is okay since cowls aren't that exciting to look at. But I think the alts adding color give the skin a lot more personality and even make him look diseased or corrupted. Dan mentions that this should drop Q1, but I could see this getting pushed back a month or two since he does mention that it hinges on getting a new programmer on board. Up next for Q1, Dan talks about wanting to get an offline tournament mode. The person commenting on the Nolt board details how they'd like things like the shop disabled, which I can imagine might become a problem for TOs running massive regionals. I'd also hope there's a way to access skins in an offline tournament mode, or at least the skin I'd like to use, by signing into an account or maybe with a QR code scan or something like that. It's really no fun to buy a skin on my setup and then have to go and play on stream and be forced to pick from something like Blue Tangor Kane. Like, please do not make me pick Blue Tangor Kane. These next few comments on the Nolt board aren't for Q1, but they are marked as being looked at by the devs. One I'm sure a lot of you will be really happy to hear about is the devs are monitoring server problems. Dan talks about how there's a lot of factors at play, like your ISP, PC's power, and server capacity. I imagine this is something that'll only get better over the years and as the game gets more refined in the back end, but I personally normally rock with 1 to 2 rollback frames, and rarely get above 4, playing from Texas, even on servers like Seattle or Newark. And speaking of, I've never heard of Newark. I think it's some kind of industry plant city, but I don't know. I know the devs did talk about adding a port-to-port setting for the game long-term, since maintaining server costs past the game's sunset wouldn't make a lot of sense. But I'd imagine that's at least 6 or 7 years off. I'd hope to see an optional port-to-port mode a little bit sooner though, since I think it might help players playing in more rural areas with each other. But this isn't something I'm super educated on, so I trust the devs and whatever they choose to do. Dan also addresses floor hugging on the Nolt board, saying the team sees the discussions about it, but they want to find a good way to keep the game feeling varied, while also making sure floor hugging isn't too strong of an option. Personally, I think it's really close to where it should be, but sometimes I'll pop someone with a F-strong at 55 and they'll kind of slide on the floor like air hockey. So I'm sure there's a few small tweaks that can be made. Speaking of gameplay and pacing, whiff lag is brought up here too. Dan talks about how adding whiff lag to a 3D game that scales its frame rate is super hard, since they need to animate whiff animations for every move. He talks about adding more landing lag to aerials, which I think is the best way to go about it, since the monthly patches could add small changes over time. A problem I see a lot right now is Zetter feels a little bit unpunishable, so I'd imagine if they wanted to target him, they could add a frame or two to his landing lag, or reduce shield stun to a few of his aerials. Give it a week or two, and see how that feels for both the Zetter player and his opponents. I also think adding whiff lag to some high reward projectiles might make them a little less riskier. Fleet's down B, which is the only move in the game with whiff lag, is a really cool example of this. I think it's a cool mechanic, and I'd like to see it implemented in some forms, but it might not need to be implemented all the way across the board. For our last Nolt post, let's end on a fun one. I talked about minigame-esque modes a little bit earlier, but Dan mentions we should be getting some form of Break the Targets in early 2025. He's not sure 100% what it'll look like, but I personally love Break the Targets, and I'd love to see some kind of online leaderboard similar to the ranked leaderboard we see in the roadmap. I think it'd be really cool if I could filter a leaderboard to just include my friends or something like that, so we could compete against each other for better times. That just about wraps up everything I could find on the Nolt board and everything from the roadmap. I did my best to keep speculation down to minimum, since I'd really hate to be a dev and see people expect something from the game that's kind of an impossible ask. However, just because I didn't speculate very much today doesn't mean that you can't. Let me know what kind of stuff you'd like to see in this game in the year in the comments. I always love seeing the community's ideas, since they can range from being so creative, like a tetherball mode, to so typical, like Zetterburn nerfs. If you're rocked with this video and you want to see more, I've got a whole playlist talking about Rivals 2. It's on the screen now, and you should really check it out. Until next time, peace.